Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name's Ken Sterbrog. You'll hear a little bit more from me here in just a few minutes, but welcome to the 2021 Nanette Philibert Business of Art Symposium. This is our 8th year of hosting this, and I want to say thank you. Before we begin, part of this presentation is for the Small Business Development Center. And I want to let you know, for those who are attending on Zoom, because right now we're on Zoom, that this is being recorded and it may be shared on a university, department, social media, or YouTube channel. So for those of you who might be a little uncomfortable with having your name on a Zoom presentation, you can go back into your settings, change your name to user 1, user 2, future artist, or whatever it might be, and then come back in. But we just want to let you know that this is being recorded for that particular reason. But for the first introduction, I want to introduce Dr. Tom Schmidt.
Thank you. I guess the first applause I've ever gotten, so it's probably let you down now. But my name is Tom Schmidt. I'm the Associate Dean of the Robert W. Plaster College of Business. And on behalf of the college and Missouri Southern State University, I want to welcome you to the 8th annual Nanette Philibert Symposium. Dr. Philibert was a professor of management in the college, and she had a true passion for art. And this basically was a class project that she instituted, and it developed now into a collaboration between the Department of Art, the College of Business, and the Small Business Development Center. We've been very successful in bringing a number of really good speakers to campus, so we want to continue on that track. And we realize how difficult it is to make a living as an artist. So the symposium is designed to give you some tips and help on the business side of being an artist, and hopefully you can develop a career around that. So we look forward to many more years of this and your continued success. Thank you.
You're on a roll. You can continue on. Okay. Well, again, my name is Ken Sterbrog. I am the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship in the College of Business, and I'm also a business consultant with the Small Business Development Center. The Small Business Development Center exists on campus to provide assistance to entrepreneurs, students, or those within the community who are looking to start a business, grow a business, or just have questions about business overall. We are in a collaboration with the Small Business Administration, so our funding is partially through the SBA, it's partially through Missouri Southern. So our services, our counseling, our visits are offered at no charge, and that's to anybody. So we have some information in the back. We ask that you just make a phone call or send an email if you'd like to schedule an appointment. Again, it's in confidence. We don't tell anybody about our conversation, but if you're thinking about starting something, if you have a couple questions, please don't hesitate to let us know. And a lot of you probably already have a business, but you might have some ideas or some thoughts about this or whatever. You just want another sounding board, a set of ears. That's why we exist. So with that being said, you also on your table will have a little purple sheet. I know some of you have to leave your classes or whatever that you have to attend, and I totally get that. We understand and appreciate you being here today. But before you leave, if you can just fill this out, don't put your name on it, just fill this out and just leave it upside down. We'll collect those at the very end of this. So with that being said, that's who I am in SBDC. Our first presentation is from Eric Wolf. He is the chair of the theater department. He's going to give a brief overview of the Arts Management and Leadership Certificate, our interdisciplinary course of study combining arts management, business, and fine and performing art classes. So Eric, so perfect.
Thank you. He clapped for me. Hi, like you said, I'm Eric Wolf. I'm the head of theater and designer for the arts administration program that we have here at Missouri Southern. Our Arts and Management Leadership Certificate is interdisciplinary. It covers art, music, history, museum studies, theater, basically any nonprofit organization and the work that they do in the entertainment industry. As this program grows, we're looking at developing a new program in the live performing arts entertainment for-profit industry. So think of films, theme parks, things of that nature, touring concerts. Our program recently got accredited with the Association of Arts Administration for Education. And we've already placed one person to work in a museum studies. We have another one who's currently looking at working with Connect to Culture, who gets to speak with us next. And then we have another one who's about to graduate again in museum studies and art. So if it's anything you're ever interested in and working in a nonprofit sector, I have information back there in a Missouri MSSU degree guide, looks just like this little thing, that tells you all about the different programs available in arts administration. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. Cool stuff going on. We have Emily Frankowski next with Connect to Culture. She is the director of Connect to Culture, a Joplin-based nonprofit organization that was founded in 2009 to enhance community through culture. Connect to Culture continues to grow audiences and develop resources that strengthen the arts, culture, and entertainment in the city. They strive to ignite a passion for the arts, culture, and entertainment. So, Emily, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much for including Connect to Culture. I am Emily Frankowski. I'm the director, and I'm going to give you an overview of what Connect to Culture is, as well as the Cornell Complex that's currently being built downtown in Joplin. And it's a really exciting project. And I know many of you will probably be really active inside the building. So if you haven't heard of Connect to Culture before, I'm really glad I'm here so I can introduce you. But you'll see one of the handouts you have is kind of a brief overview of everything Connect to Culture. Our mission is to ignite a passion for the arts, culture, and entertainment in the Joplin area. Let's see if I get this right. Should I click over here? It wasn't. Let's see. There we go. All right. So we're really unlike any of the other nonprofits that are in the area. We have kind of a three-pronged approach, three different things that we do and focus on. First and foremost, we are kind of the arts council figure in Joplin. We don't really call ourselves an arts council. We're a community arts agency, and we work to support and promote all different types of art, nonprofit and for-profit. There's over 40 different organizations in Joplin that focus on all different forms of arts and culture. And we try to make sure that they are supported in a variety of ways that I'll talk about. We're also the driving force behind the Harry M. Cornell Arts and Entertainment Complex in downtown Joplin that will be opening late 2022. If you have been downtown, or if you haven't, this might be a reason to go downtown. But right on 7th between Joplin and Wall, you'll see a huge structure going up, and that is the Cornell Complex. And it will be the future home of resident organizations Connect to Culture, who will be focusing on the visual arts side within that complex, and Spiva Center for the Arts, which will be focusing on the visual arts aspect. But we also hope other arts organizations start to call it home and have their programs inside of it. And we are also a performing arts presenter. So if we didn't have enough to do, we added on being a full-time performing arts presenter in 2017, and we bring in national touring artists. And I'll talk a little bit about our current season, which you'll find in this trifold that I handed out. So we really try to grow audience while developing resources that will strengthen the arts and cultural community. We do that through these three things: community arts, visionary, performing arts presenter. So one of the most exciting aspects, I think, is our building project, which has been in the works since 2009. It has had a variety of potential homes, but we have found a space downtown, really centrally located, that's very exciting for the future of downtown development. We really wanted to create a home for the arts in Joplin to educate, enlighten, and entertain while attracting more people and activities to downtown Joplin. We think this will strengthen the cultural opportunities in the city. We really want it to be a gathering place and a catalyst for the arts. And it will bring in visual and performing arts from across the United States and world to Joplin, bring in opportunities that we were not able to host before. And we also want to nurture the talent that's right here in the region. So this will also be a center to foster visual and performing arts that's local. But it is going to also drive tourism, which the arts always do. That's always amazing to learn how many event-related dollars are created from the arts, which I will also touch on briefly. And it will obviously generate a lot of sales tax revenue for the city of Joplin, which will hopefully make them happy as well. Let's see. Might have turned off again. I think it might have lost battery. Okay, there we go. So the Cornell Complex, like I said, it's sometimes a little bit confusing to understand how exactly it will operate. It will be its own nonprofit that will kind of do the day-to-day, handling the bills associated with the complex, and Connect to Culture will kind of focus on the Performing Arts Center side as well. And SPIVA will have new and expanded galleries and things like that, and new workshops and all these different types of amenities. But this is what it looks like if you're, standing across the street on 7th looking south. Right now it looks kind of skeletal because there's just a bunch of metal instead of the panels that will be on the side, but quickly it will start taking shape. This is the back view, and you can see there's an amphitheater space that will seat over 2,000. What's really cool about it as well is that it has this huge hangar door on the back where the artist can be performing to both the outdoor green space and inside at the same time. So if you look really closely, you can see audience members inside too. And also these awesome rooftop venues that in downtown Joplin, I mean, there's a lot of really fun buildings to take a look at, and you'll be able to be up on a rooftop, enjoying yourself, listening to a poetry reading, maybe a smaller concert on one of the rooftop terraces. So inside, it's going to be a 37,000 square foot building, pretty big. Inside for the performance hall, it's going to be a 470 seat performance hall. And it's going to be a very flexible space. When you walk in, you're on the same plane as the stage. But we're going to have these really nifty platforms in front where you just put a power tool in it and lift and lower, and you can make raised seating. And you can have, like a flat floor with banquet seating. You could have, you can make an orchestra pit if you wanted to with the configuration that we're going to have. So we wanted to make a really flexible space where all different performing arts groups in Joplin could use it for their performances, like Pro Musica or Heartland Opera Theater, or even some of the schools if they needed space. And like I said, Connect to Culture will finally have a home. We've kind of been moving around to different places, and SPIVA Center for the Arts, which is already downtown and has a building, has definitely outgrown it. They're not able to bring in visual arts exhibits that they want to just because they're limited with their security system and the lack of humidity controlled rooms and things like that. And they're just kind of bursting out of their classroom spaces. So they're going to have really large classrooms. They're going to have a really expanded main gallery, regional gallery, and permanent collection gallery, which they don't have right now. So very exciting for them. We also have a 2,000 person capacity outdoor amphitheater and green space. So it's going to be really fun to have a place downtown where you can actually just go and, take a picnic lunch and sit outside in a green space in the middle of downtown. And you can watch a show at the amphitheater. There's also multiple rooftop venues, like I showed you, office space as well for arts and cultural organizations that don't already have it. Obviously, both of those organizations, Connect to Culture and SPIVA, will be in there, but we have a special section that is not going to be built out, but when people and organizations are interested, we will build out those for organizations to have office spaces. Pro Musica already has an office space that they have showed interest in, so they'll be in there too. So we hope people will join us. Oh, think we went forward. But also many meeting spaces. So cornellcomplex.org, if you're interested in seeing more pictures, I'll show you briefly some of the pictures. This is the first floor, the lobby, and the grand stairway and the gift shop. These are just renderings. And then the first floor, this is the indoor 470 seat theater with this fun blue seating configuration. Blue is kind of the Cornell Complex branding colors. So let's see a lot of blue, but it shows you, you know, flat floor with round tables, then raised seating. And you can kind of see it in the top left that you can see outside if you open that door. Then on the second floor, that's where Spiva's main galleries will be and a donor lounge to entertain donors. Here's a view inside of the galleries, updated lighting fixtures as well that they are going to be able to use. And then the third floor kind of shows you on the left kind of some lighting situation outside on one of the rooftop venues, and then a boardroom and kind of what the office spaces will look like upstairs. And then a classroom in the bottom right. And if you're trying to figure out exactly where this is, if you haven't seen it being built, 7th Street's on your left, and then the complex will be right there with the green space, and Memorial Hall is to the right, which is, you know, we have used it for performances before. Unfortunately, it had a partial roof collapse, I think 1.5 years ago. So no one's been able to use it, but it is recently been placed on the National Register of Historic Places, which will allow it to collect some federal and state tax credits if someone would want to develop it. So I think we're all really hopeful that it will be restored. And then here are some pictures of it, actually how it is now. So you can see it's very skeletal looking. Probably in mid-December, it will start looking a bit more solid because we're waiting on some metal pieces. So where are we with our fundraising? We've been doing this for a while. We're almost there to our goal of 17.5 million. We've raised nearly 16.9 million so far from 324 individuals, businesses, and other groups. So we've had a lot of support from the community, but there's still opportunities to help out, and gifts of all sizes are appreciated. But let's also kind of give a brief overview of Connect to Culture as a community arts agency. So I encourage you all to go to connecttoculture.org. Our website just got a facelift, so that's always nice. But if you're interested in the arts, this is really a great resource for you to figure out what kind of things in Joplin there are, whether it be visual arts, performing arts, cultural arts, all different types of things. We have a directory that lists all of the different groups, kind of a landing page for each of them, and then gives you links to their online content, kind of like a Facebook page for each of them. And then we also have a public art directory. So if you're interested in murals downtown, we have all the stories and about the artists and where they're located and great pictures. And we also are very popular for our arts and cultural calendar. We kind of collect all of the 40+ groups, events, and performances and classes that they have going on and combine it into one calendar so you don't have to hunt all over the internet to figure out what kind of exhibits or performances are available in Joplin. We also are very active on social media, so if you'd rather do that, please follow us on all the different outlets. And we also support all the groups by having our Connect to Culture roundtables. We focus on best practice workshops for those different organizations. We have media panels or copyright law workshops. We also do our preview event where we invite all the organizations to present on what they're going to be offering the next season, which is always really fun. And you can find it on YouTube. We actually partnered with KGCS, and the students came and filmed it and put it on YouTube for us. And we're really adamant about outreach. We go on KSN's Living Well show actually later today, usually every month, to talk about what's going on in the arts the next month, as well as KOAM Morning News and different radio shows. We host a variety of collaborative programs like Joplin Arts Fest and National Poetry Month events. And we're very adamant about advocacy on the local, state, and federal levels. We even participated in a national study on the benefits of nonprofit arts and their audiences in 2015-16, which we're getting ready to do again this summer. But let's see, it's not going again. There we go. But through that study, and this was, quite a while ago, we figured out that the arts in Joplin generate $5.4 million annually. And that total amount comes from $1.8 million spent by the organizations that then their audiences bring back $3.6 million of that. So the arts really do make an economic impact in Joplin. They create or sustain arts and cultural jobs totaling 191 full-time equivalent jobs. You can see all the other numbers up here, but I know that these numbers have hopefully just grown. I mean, I think that from the pandemic, we've kind of, we're growing again, because these numbers were 2015. I would say we were going to do this study again a year ago or a year and a half ago, and right when the pandemic hit. And so they decided to kind of postpone it so that we could all get back on our feet and then do the study again. So hopefully whenever we do this again this summer and next year, we will have increased numbers. And this is just a screenshot of our website. Please take a look at it. Here's a picture of our recent arts and cultural preview, where the organizations came and talked about their seasons and things they're offering, which is also on YouTube. And then our performance season, you'll see in this green trifold I passed out. We started becoming a performing arts presenter in 2017 with our Curtains Up series. When we move into the complex, we will expand our offerings and have different series focused on different types of performing arts, maybe a children's entertainment series or a piano series. But for now, we have the Curtains Up series, which focuses on a variety of national touring artists of all different types. Because we don't have our own venue right now, we use a variety of different venues. This year, we're using Joplin High School's Performing Arts Center, Ozark Christian College's Chapel, Central Christian Center, and Joplin Empire Market's Courtyard. So we move around quite a bit and create different venues everywhere we are. But our shows this year are very exciting. We're excited to have our first children's theater touring group come with Schoolhouse Rock Live. And they're going to be here November 20th, so coming up fast. There's 2 shows at 4 and 7 p.m. at Joplin High School Performing Arts Center. Then for the holidays, we're going to have Dallas String Quartet, which they just performed at Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani's wedding, and are a very fun group. They play string instruments, but they're all electric. So it's definitely a twist on classical music. They'll be playing holiday tunes at Ozark Christian College. Then we have Charles Mcpherson, who is a Joplin native. He was born here and he moved to Detroit and now lives in California. But we have Connect Culture and a variety of other organizations are bringing him home for a homecoming performance. And this February 19th performance is a free performance at Central Christian Center. And there are other variety of performances and even a mural being created in his honor during this week. And then the 10 tenors, we're going to have them come back in February as well. They'll be singing love songs. They're from Australia, and they're just a lot of fun. They'll be at Joplin High School. And then Las Cafeteras is our closer, and they are a Chicano band from East LA. They're a lot of fun, very socially conscious, and play really interesting traditional son jaroko instruments, and are just really exciting. So that will be April 2nd at Joplin Empire Market's Courtyard outside. And just to recap, Connect to Culture is the community arts agency supporting and promoting all arts and culture and entertainment in Joplin and the Joplin area. We're also working on the Harry M. Cornell Arts and Entertainment Complex that will be open next year. So we hope to see a lot of you there. And then I hope to also see you at our performances or sometime between now and April. And if you have any questions, this is my contact information. Feel free to come and talk to me after this as well. But I hope that this has made you a little bit more excited about arts and culture in Joplin. And I hope to see you out there. So thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Next will be Janet Penn. She is the board member of the Neosho Arts Council, a Neosho-based not-for-profit organization that produces the annual Thomas Hart Benton Art Competition, Art Con, and manages an exhibition series through their Big Spring Gallery. The Neosho Arts Council strengthens and enriches the community by growing appreciation, participation, and support of the arts. Janet.
I want to thank you all for inviting us to this event, and I look forward to telling you a little bit about Neosho and about our Arts Council there. We're excited that we're able to bring the arts to all ages and all walks of our community. One of our most recent additions to Neosho's fine arts scene is live music in Big Spring Park. Big Spring Park is a premier park that we have in Neosho with kind of an amphitheater type feel to it. It's kind of in a little bit of a bowl and has a lot of live water, which makes for very interesting sounds that come through there. We've done several community concerts that have all been free to the community. That's one of the things we do try to do, is pay back to the community in any form or fashion that we can. A couple of other things that we do in the year, this past year, we just did our annual sidewalk chalk contest, where we have all the kids in the community or anybody that comes to the fall festival is able to have a professional set of chalks for free at no charge. And they're given a 3-foot by 3-foot area on a sidewalk to do whatever they would like to do in the form of art. We also have a professional and adult category in that prize money is awarded to. So we were able to pay back to some of those artists out there. Murals are a big thing in Neosho. We have 3 right now that are in need of restoration, and we're working on a restoration project. It's about a $40,000 project to restore all 3 of these murals. One of them is located at Big Spring Park. It's a mosaic tile mural, which is, you know, pretty fascinating when you go down and look at it and think about it all. We also just commissioned a mural this summer. Elizabeth Wallsmith was able to do one for us at Scenic Park that may be shown in the brochure here. As you can see, some of our murals are showing up on here also. That's the one with all the flowers and all the nature items and talks about nature's treasures. We also work to send all of our 3rd graders in Neosho School District to the Spiva Arts Center for an art experience every year. Again, it's a way for us to give back to our community and give back to those kids, get them interested in art right away. And they all are always able to make a project that they can also take home. We look forward to doing some big events in 2022. One of our biggest events is Neosho Art Con. It's actually February the 5th. Mark your calendars, please, because it's kind of a big deal. Apparently, we're one of the first ones in the area within the calendar year to actually host an art con. And our first year, we expected, we were going to be happy with a 300 people turnout. We had a little over 1,000 the first year. Second year, we thought, okay, well, we got to think bigger and bigger location. And we did that. We were hoping for 1,200 maybe, and we had almost 2,000. Third year, we did it all virtually, whole new ball game. So it was a little bit different for us. But this year we're going back to the bigger location, the in-person event, and I think we're going to be very, very happy with it. Some of our past guests include Corin Nemec from Supernatural and Stargate, Andrew Parks, whose graphic novel is now a Netflix film, Extraction, starring Chris Hemsworth. And they just started doing on that. Jeremy Hahn has been there, Phil Hester, Megan Levins. They've all drawn titles such for Batman, Superman, and Star Wars. just to name a few of them. It's a fun-filled event. It starts like around 10 o'clock in the morning. It's over by 6. We like for people to be able to come and stay all day. We've had visitors from Tulsa, Kansas City, and Arkansas obviously is another big area where they come from. So when we are fundraising, which the ArtCon is one of our biggest fundraisers, it's to help fund everything that we do throughout the year, the free concerts, the free chalk, the kids to Spiva Arts Center every year. And so we just try to get back to our community. I've handed out a brochure about Neosho Arts Council. On the back of it, it talks about Neosho ArtCon. It is coming February the 5th. So if you would mark your calendars for it. And then we also have one thing I didn't hit on much. We have a gallery in Neosho that's a high traffic area gallery. It's located in Big Spring at the Chamber of Commerce down by Big Spring Park. And we actually are booking for late 2022, 23. And all you have to do, it tells right on the brochure how you might be able to do a show there. It's a fairly good sized gallery. So sometimes we do not just single shows, but multiples during 1 month period of time. So we would like for you to get involved in it. If you need to do some volunteer work and would like to help us with some of our events, we would always appreciate that. And you can reach us at neoshoarts.net for those opportunities. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. So really quick, before we get to our graduate programs who are here visiting today, I was at a meeting a few years ago and they're talking about economic development. They're talking about, how can we develop the community, the region to help spur like small businesses, potentially artists, and how do we get people here? And so one of the presenters was talking about the need and the importance of like basketball tournaments, okay, which is nothing against that. And because those individuals, they come in, their families come in, they spend nights in hotels, they spend food and, spend money in restaurants. And he slammed his hand on the table and said, that's economic development. That's one little sliver. And what you just heard from the Neosho Arts Council and Connected Culture, those organizations are here, 365 days a year in order to help foster and help educate entrepreneurs who are looking to start maybe an art business or an art gallery, or to have an opportunity to showcase your stuff so you can sell online. Those organizations exist to help. That's real economic development right there. That is a big part of economic development. So that's a good reason why we had those individuals here. But we're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to have an opportunity to hear from 2 regional graduate programs. This is our first for this symposium. So we're excited to have Sarah Williams, who is a graduate coordinator from the Department of Art at Missouri State University in Springfield. She'll be discussing their program in the Master's in Fine Arts and Visual Studies. So I will hand it over to Sarah.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's so nice to see you today. Yes, my name is Sarah Williams. I'm here with my colleague, Deidre Argyle, who is the professor of sculpture at Missouri State University. I run am the coordinator for Missouri State's Visual Studies MFA. It is a 3-year, 60 credit hour program that allows students to pursue the visual research they're interested in making across many areas of emphasis, if necessary, guided by faculty that best suit their research goals. Students have the opportunity to explore interdisciplinary approaches to art and design and are exposed to critical discourses relating to community, identity, public responsibility, and humanity. We have about 26 faculty in our art and design department. Of those, we have about 14 who are graduate faculty and work with our MFA students directly. With many areas of expertise, our program is housed in what is referred to as Brick City Complex, which are they're actually old ice packing plants. They sit off the main campus, are very close to our downtown square, which is located near a lot of our art things and art venues in Springfield. Our gallery actually participates in what we call First Friday art walks, and there are openings all throughout town, a lot of times downtown, so our students just make the rounds and see all the visiting artists that we have come through the space. Our Brick City facilities include graduate studios, a ceramic studio, fabrication labs, sculpture labs, animation labs, and a lot more. Our Brick City Gallery has rotating exhibitions. Right now, we've got some really wonderful kinetic sculptors who are visiting that Deidre has helped bring to our campus, both of which have done public lectures and studio visits with our graduates. Our Brick City area is located in what is known as Idea Commons. It's a Missouri State's vision for an urban innovation park in downtown Springfield. It's a collaborative community effort that brings together corporations, the university's residential lofts, nonprofits, office areas, and retail spaces. So it's going to be developing over the coming years and have lots of interesting green spaces and just be a neat place. Our curriculum revolves around the idea of studio coursework, critique courses, theory, art history, as well as professional practice courses. Our small size allows for small class sizes, many of which are one-on-one mentor-mentee-like relationships between 1 or 2 students and a faculty member. At the moment, we have 14 graduates in our program. We're somewhat of a new program, so we're still kind of gaining steam and momentum, but we're really excited about the kind of energy that's in our program among our students at the moment. We are establishing a visiting artist program as well that not only services our undergrad students, but our graduates as well. It allows them to interact with graduates in terms of lectures that are held on campus, but also personal studio visits. So it's always great to not only have the perspective of your professors, but people that might be visiting and coming to our campus. Full-time graduate studios are granted an access to their own private studios, sometimes private, sometimes shared spaces that they have access to 24/7. Graduate students have these studios for the 3 years that they are in the program. We actually are developing more and more studio spaces as our program grows. We just built 5 new spaces in an area that we have a new gallery not too far. It's actually just like half a block away from the Brick City complex. Also of note is that our program has graduate assistance awards, and they're renewable for 3 years. Last year, the award is worth about $42,249 in terms of tuition fees that you would accrue over a 3-year period. A full GA award also provides a stipend along with waiving tuition and most of the fees associated with our graduate program. It came in at just under $11,000 last year, so that's nice for students to have some income while they're studying. We also have GA awards that are available to students in the summer. And it allows students to not only work on their MFA studies, but a lot of times be teaching for us with their GA assignments. So they're able to learn to teach in a very structured environment. So that's a little bit about our program. We've got a table set up in the back with a lot of takeaways. We have a pretty good presence on Instagram. It's MFA_MoState, and we have little cards with our QR code on there so you could follow us easily. But we'd be very willing to talk with you. So come on back and ask us a question. And also, if you're interested, set up a tour and come to Springfield and check it out. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. It's always good to kind of reconnect with where I went to school. I'm a graduate from Missouri State. It was SMS back in the day. Undergraduate in recreational leisure studies. It's an actual major. But I also have my MBA from there. So nice to reconnect. Next, we have Donna Smith-Jones. She's the Director of Recruitment and Outreach at the University of Arkansas School of Art. She'll be discussing their Masters in Fine Arts programs and the newly introduced Masters of Art in Art Education. So Donna?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank Kenneth so much for inviting us to come down. We're just about an hour and a half away, about south. So if any of you are ever interested in coming to visit with us, please feel free to contact me. I'm in the back on this side, and I'd be glad to talk with you more. I do have my phone because I can tend to ramble. So I want to make sure I'm on time too. So we have two very exciting graduate programs at the University of Arkansas School of Art. The major reason that these are put in place, the MFA program has been around since the 1950s, but got a major boost 4 years ago when we received a $120 million gift as an endowment from the Walton Family Charitable Support Foundation. So what that's enabled us to do is to fund our students for the 3 years of their program in the MFA for studio art. That ranges across multidisciplinary studies. That also gives you a studio for the 3 years of the program, a guaranteed assistantship for the fall and spring each year. And then that also opens up summer opportunities as well. So we've sent students to Ghana, Finland, Scotland, Japan, China to do research, as well as travel to different conferences and things like that. This is small on this postcard, but it's big in life. So I was so excited to hear Emily talk about the construction happening for the new building downtown. And we too are actually in the process of building a new 154,000 square foot facility for all of our studio art classes and graphic design classes. That is also going to be where all the new graduate studios are held. Right now, because of our growth, we're split between 9 different buildings. So we've got quite a hold on the real estate in Fayetteville, Arkansas, but we're all going to be back together starting this time next year. So we're really excited about that. And then I did want to share about the new Master of Arts in Art Education program. We literally rolled this out a week ago. So you all are the first group that's sort of getting that sneak peek into that program. We will be accepting applications both for the MFA Studio Art program and the MA in Arts Education up until January 15th of this year for next year. The MA in Arts Education looks across multidisciplines at art education in schools, communities, museums, and galleries. So it's not just for students that maybe have had a background in arts education. It's for students that want to have that real inclusive approach to any sort of arts education across the board. So it's been so exciting so far to hear about all the arts economic development here in Joplin and really thinking about how arts integration factors into all of that. And so a degree like this would be perfect for somebody wanting to think outside the box a bit about how art invades our lives in every aspect. It too is fully funded for the 2 years of the program. The first class size, we're hoping to be around 12 students for our MFA program. Across the 3-year program, we have about 36 students. Those students also will get access to over 75 faculty within the School of Art. That's grown from 36 when I started 4 years ago. So we continue to grow, to develop. I know I met with one of our alumni this morning, which is really exciting too. So if you all have any questions about the program, about the different classes offered, studios, different research and development opportunities, I would be glad to talk with you more. And I really thank you so much for being here, for taking that active step to learn more about how the arts economy is being shaped right now. And hope you all have a great rest of the symposium. Thank you.
I think I failed to mention this, but the rest of the symposium, we have a couple more keynote speakers. The first one will be through Zoom, and so we're going to get them connected in. But we have lunch also will be provided. So after this is done, we do ask that if you have the opportunity, please stay, and we have lunch, which will be here at about noonish or so. So if you can, that would be fantastic. But our first keynote speaker, as we get her set up, her name is Dr. Kimberly Massler. She's got a PhD. She is the curator of South and Southeast Asian art in the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art in Kansas City. Before coming to the Nelson Atkins Museum, she held the position of assistant curator of Islamic and later Indian art at the Harvard Art Museums from 2002 to 2008. Along with her curatorial work, she has served as an adjunct instructor in Asian and Islamic art history at the Kansas City Art Institute, the University of Missouri, Kansas City, the University of Kansas, the Art Institute of Boston, Ohio University, and the Ohio State University, and held the position of visiting assistant professor of art history at Denison University. Massler holds a PhD in the history of art from The Ohio State University, a master's degree in art history from Ohio University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Muskingum University. So as she's being prepared to get on Zoom, we hopefully have it here. There she is. It's so nice to see her. We've communicated a lot via email, so it's nice to put a face with the writing. So without any further ado, please welcome our first keynote speaker.
Hi, and thank you. And that's great. Welcome. It never, always sounds like you're talking about somebody else. So I appreciate it. And it's lovely to see all of you here and attending in person. I wish I was down there with you. And so I hope to visit you and your program sometime soon. I have a PowerPoint so I can share a screen, and I'll see if it'll let me do that. And you can tell me. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Oh, you guys are great. Okay. So I'm with you today to talk about a bit about museum work. I'll tell you about my museum. I'll talk about my profession, which is curatorship, and also a little bit about other museum careers that you can find at a place like the Nelson Atkins. So a bit about myself. I am curator of the South and Southeast Asian departments at the Nelson Atkins Museum. That also includes their Islamic collections. I came here at the end of 2008. So I've been here, gosh, going on like 13 years. And I came here because of the collection. It's a great museum, but I want to talk a bit about the type of museum it is. How many of you, I can't see your faces very well, but I can see your hands. How many of you have been to the Nelson Atkins before? Okay. See a couple hands going up. If you haven't come, sometime when you're coming up to Kansas City, please come join us for a visit to the museum. It's a terrific institution, and the permanent galleries are always free. And you can even park on the street if you can find it for free. So you can come here as a pretty inexpensive visit. The museum opened in 1933. And I'll tell you a little bit about its history. The name Nelson Atkins comes from two founders, two people in the community in the late 19th and early 20th century in Kansas City who wanted the city to have an art museum. Mary Atkins was a school teacher who had moved to Kansas City from Kentucky, and she had married someone who was a real estate developer right at the time that the city was a boom town, and they amassed some money. And later in life, when she was widowed, she traveled to Europe and visited family, and she was blown away by the architecture and the museums there and the churches filled with art. And she wanted Kansas City to have an art museum so people could have that experience. At the same time, in the late 19th century, there was a man named William Rockhill Nelson, and he was kind of the opposite of Mary Atkins. He was a figure who was very in the public eye, very bombastic man. He was the owner and head of the Kansas City Star and some other local newspapers. And but like Mary Atkins, he also was traveling to Europe, and he was actually buying copies of old master paintings to display, as well as sculptures, which he created a kind of gallery in downtown Kansas City in the 1890s. so people could be exposed to what great art. And so both of them in their wills left money to found a museum in the case of Mary Atkins, and a museum collection in the case of Mr. Nelson. And so that's how the museum got its name, as the two trusts were joined to build it. The trustees who managed these funds, so these were collections that were created not by a founding collection, which is kind of unusual for a lot of museums, especially in the US. A lot of them began with a private collection, but they were started with funds. And so it was up to the trustees to figure out how to spend that money. And between 1930, when they got access to the funds, in 1933, we had built our core collection. So at the time we opened, we had filled half of that big stone building there in the center with art. And we're now home to over 40,000 works of art. We are what you would call an encyclopedic collection. And so that is kind of a term to talk about something that includes a wide breadth that's attempting to be a global art museum. So we have works of art from across Asia, Africa, Latin America, South America, and the Americas, as well as, of course, Europe, that helped form our collection. And it spans about 5,000 years in terms of the age of creation of works of art, from 4,000 to 5,000 BCE with some of the ancient, or 3,000 BCE with some of the ancient objects, up to contemporary art, including in our special exhibitions. And our mission, our tagline, is where the power of art engages the spirit of community. And one thing that the museum is really moving towards is to becoming an institution that creates both the place for dialogue and is working in dialogue with members of our various communities around Kansas City. And so you'll see, if you come to the museum, a lot of public engagement. We have probably 6 cultural festivals that we celebrate during the year. And this is up until the pandemic, when those festivals went online. Our most recent festival, the Day of the Dead, was just celebrated this week. And because we couldn't hold a large festival, we created an altar in the building with our community members, and we're leaving that on view for several weeks. But we're trying to get back to this because we want to be a place where everybody feels free to come, as a place to meet, as a place to engage with art and each other. So how can you work at a museum? There are many careers that involve just about any type of skill that you can imagine. So I want to walk you through a few different, just a few of the careers that are possible at a museum like the Nelson Atkins, and at other museums and art centers, like the terrific art centers you have there in Joplin and Southern Missouri. Exhibition, preparation, and installation. I want to call that out because if you're a person who both loves making art, but also handling it, you're a very hands-on person. This is a great career path. We have wonderful people we work with to move and install and take down artwork. We have mount builders. They're often people who have a knack for sculpture, working in wood and metal themselves, who help build intricate mounting systems to help secure and display works of art. And it's a pretty fun job. I know you have great design and graphic design programs and classes at your university. So I want to plug marketing and graphic design as career fields. This is somewhere where you can really use your design skills. And it's very much, as I'm sure you know from your program now, a combination of both hand designed work and digital work. In fact, even if you're working in a handmade mode or an actual printed mode, you have to be ready to transform your ideas into digital formats, which can be used a variety of ways. And so I just wanted to show you some recent examples of exhibition promotional materials and billboards that were created by our great graphic design team, both for internal use and for external advertisement of the museum and its programs. And so we have people who kind of specialize in that knack in the marketing department as well. Terrific field, and it's so exciting to hear the areas you can focus on this in graduate school nearby are education and interpretation. Museum education is a huge and growing field, and it involves a lot of kind of subcategories where people specialize. And so we have a great large team of educators at the Nelson Atkins, and some of them specialize in school programs, developing school tours or take-home curricula, working with teachers to find out what are their curriculum needs that they need to hit, and then how can the museum, through its collection and its exhibitions and the themes and ideas and histories that those address, help them meet their curricular needs. And so that's been an interesting change that I've seen since I've been at the museum, where school education was more kind of focused on what the museum had to say about an individual work of art. And now it's much more collaborative with the schools and state curricular needs about, okay, here's our exhibition, here's some objects that tie into things that you need to teach. And so there's a wonderful collaborative nature to the educational programs that I think are really interesting. We also, the education department also arranges our public programs, everything from tours to festivals, to talks, to movies. And the other call out I would make to those of you who might be interested in a museum education career is a newer field, but clearly now its own field, called interpretation. And interpretation is a very interesting field of museum education, because interpreters work very closely with people like me, with curators, to communicate, to find kind of interesting ways to communicate what stories the object or an exhibition or a gallery have to tell in a way that the public can understand. And so when we develop exhibitions, we usually work with a very kind of close core team, and it will include a curator, an interpreter, and an exhibition designer. And usually it's these kind of three people who work most closely together to help you experience and learn from the objects that you are seeing, and in a way that is hopefully engaging and not intimidating. This is another very interesting area of museum work, which not everybody knows about because it's behind the scenes. So if you are somebody who is an artist and you're very meticulous and you really love the materials and you want to study the materials and you like spending time with works of art, and that is what is meaningful or enriching to you, you might look into a conservation career. Art conservation is an incredibly important career for all kinds of collections across the United States. There are just a few programs that go that actually specialize specifically in museum art conservation. Graduate programs, they're usually a 3-year program that includes 1 year of on-site kind of mentorship, where you intern at an institution with a collection to learn how to work in an institution and treat objects outside of the classroom. But it's a terrific career. And so especially if you like art making, but also are interested in the materials themselves, it's usually a program that includes both heavy studio art and conservation coursework and chemistry. The other field I want to call out is collections management. Are you an organizer? Because collections management is one of the most basic fundamental careers, just like curatorship of any museum collection. And the kind of lead job in collections management is usually a position called a registrar. And so the registrar helps keep track of the objects, what comes into the museum, what leaves, and when. Where is it at any given moment of time? You would think that's an easy job, but not when there are over 40,000 works of art in multiple storage locations, in a building and offsite, and moving around on tours. And it's actually a very, very interesting career. And one of the great things about being a prep installer, a conservator, a registrar especially, and occasionally for a curator, is that you get to travel with the art where it goes. So if it goes on an exhibition across the United States or internationally, somebody has to go with it and make sure it's safe and make sure it arrived safely and is in good condition and observes it being installed in its temporary exhibition. And then somebody has to go and retrieve it. So here you see a pallet sitting on a tarmac at an airport, and those are art crates. And so it would have been the registrar's job, if they were the courier for that trip, to not only watch the works be crated and do a condition report as they're being loaded up and into the crates to make sure there's no damage when they leave, but then you watch that crate get wrapped and you watch it get strapped to this pallet in a warehouse, and you go with it as far as you can go, and you watch it through a window get loaded on the plane, and then you go on the plane with it. And it's not always fun, but it's important. And so there are great opportunities to travel and really build experience in these positions. So for a registrar, I think being organized, being diligent, loving art, and being good with a database. And so that brings me to my field, which is a curator. And so this is a old term to curate, and it's usually someone who is in charge of something. But for an art museum, the job is a little more specific than that. And so there's a organization, a national organization of art museum curators, the AAMC, and they put forth kind of surveying colleagues, put forth a definition of what they think is fitting generally across the board for an art curator, and that is to collect, preserve, study, interpret, and display works of art for the benefit of the public. And so we'll walk through what that definition has meant in my job, how that is reflected in some of the experiences that I've had here at the Nelson Atkins. But our job is to do that emphasis on collections care, research, and interpretation, but also in collaboration with our colleagues to carry out the mission of your individual museum. Here at the Nelson Atkins, we have, like I said, a global collection. And so these are the current configuration of the curatorial departments: a Department of African Art, American Art, Native American Art, East Asian Art, it's China, Korea, and Japan, Decorative Arts and Architecture, European Painting and Sculpture, and that department includes our ancient art collection from Europe, Modern and Contemporary Art, Photography, and South and Southeast Asian Art, which includes the Islamic collections. And so what are the things that curators do here in Kansas City? One of our primary jobs is to share the collection, whether it's sharing it with individuals or students in class visits, or sharing the collection with donors, patrons of the museum, members, or the general community, both in Kansas City or beyond. And so we do a lot of talking, a lot of lecturing about works of art. I'm at a collecting institution, so different from an art center or exhibition center like some institutions. We have a permanent collection that we're always trying to grow to better reflect a larger history of art, and we collect to maybe fill in areas of the collection that could use development, or what we call kind of filling gaps, but also we want to have great works to share with the public. And so we collect in 3 ways, through gifts. And I brought an example of a recent gift to my department on the left of a sculpture from Myanmar in Southeast Asia. Through purchases. We are fortunate to have some funds that Rockhill Trust money is long gone, unfortunately, in building this collection, but there are some funds, and sometimes people will donate money to help you buy works of art. So I've included contemporary work by Shazia Sikander here in the center. And then I included another wishful purchase on the right. We occasionally get to bid at auction. If you can find a private donor to support you, or if the museum can put up a certain amount of funds from a dedicated acquisition fund. And so a few years ago, we bid on something really extraordinary. This ceramic platter that you see is actually a very incredible and historically important work of art. It's from Turkey. It's from the 15th century. It's from the earliest phase of ceramics, from the ceramic center known as, that you might have heard of, called Iznik. In Turkey, it's where all the incredible painted Turkish tiles come from, and ceramics. And at this time, the Emperor Mehmet, who kind of turned the Ottoman dynasty into an empire after taking Istanbul, created an imperial workshop at Iznik. And so this is from his phase, this first phase of work. And this came up from a private collection, early 20th century collection at Sotheby's a few years ago. And it was in London. And we ended up hiring a consultant in London to go look at it, because we could see that it was cracked. We wanted to make sure it was still worth its very high price tag, or its high estimate, and that it had the visual power, which it sure looks like it does. There are only 4 of these known until this one showed up on a private collection. And I've seen 2 of them in museums, and they're amazing works of art. And so that consultant confirmed this. We talked about values. We had to go to our board of trustees. I had to pitch the work. And auction notifications usually only have a couple weeks before you find out what's being sold to the time of the sale. So we had to work very fast. Our director then worked with I and the consultant. He determined a bid he was comfortable with. We sat there watching online. Our man was in the auction in London, and we watched him barely get a bid in as it shot past him and our little museum budget, and ended up selling for $6 million. So that's the one that got away. But and we could not have paid $6 million. So I guess that's okay. But to bring, it would have been the only one of these in the United States. And it would have been really exciting to bring a work of art of this caliber to Kansas City and the central US. The other area that we work in when we're not focused on researching or developing the collections is on developing exhibitions and galleries. How do we share this art with you, and how do we tell stories with the works of art? So this is an example of an exhibition that my department worked on in 2013 and 14, where we put together historical works of Islamic art created in the Islamic lands, is how we defined this. So mostly art from the Arab lands and Persia and South Asia in this exhibition. But we have this historic collection that's actually not currently on view, and we thought we'd put it in conversation with contemporary art that's being created often by artists who are in the Middle East or South Asia, or diaspora artists, international artists and immigrants living abroad, but who are purposely looking at historical Islamic art for inspiration for their contemporary works. And so this was a really fun and popular exhibition that brought these two maybe divergent in time and intent, but visually similar works of art together. And in order to develop exhibitions and collections, curators have to do a lot of research. So we spend a lot of time in the library or online pouring through articles, JSTOR articles. And so we've got our library cubbies here on the left. But sometimes you have to travel to see the works of art or to study in archives and libraries to research your collection or other works of art or exhibition projects. So these photos are just from a recent trip to the UK, where I was working on an exhibition devoted to works of art created in India during the colonial and early modern period. So this is a long-term project, and the pandemic has certainly made it much more challenging to do. So I don't know what will happen to all this work, but I had to propose essentially a research trip to get funded to do this work. And so we worked in and met with colleagues in the Royal Collection, which you see in the lower center photograph, and in the British Library, that's the India Company office reading room in the lower right, and also met with private collectors who had works of art on this topic that they were willing to meet with us and share. Another research project, and this was a great one because it bridged multiple departments at the museum. We did a project that over many years here at the Nelson Atkins on a work in the collection, that this kind of piece you see on the left. It is a wooden shrine. It's a piece of architecture. It's about 6 feet square in terms of 6 feet high, 6 feet deep. It's kind of a portico and a pair of shrine doors that were inlaid against a wall of a home shrine in a house. It was created in Western India in the state of Gujarat, and it had not been exhibited at the museum for a long, long time. When I started here over 10 years ago, I wanted to see the shrine because I had a black and white file photo of it in my records. And when we went to offsite storage to see it, it was in 20 pieces on shelves. And it was taken apart, and it was very grimy. It was brown. And one could see that maybe it wasn't such an impressive object. Maybe that's why it wasn't on view. But we decided to bring some pieces back to the conservation lab. And our object conservators began doing some test cleaning. And what they uncovered was under this heavy kind of layer of varnish and years of dust and grime was an incredibly vibrant paint surface. We actually had this incredibly dynamic work of art. So this was a team project between the curatorial department and the conservation department. And we also worked with a conservation scientist. So this is a scientist who chooses, because of his love of art, to apply his skills in doing testing and then analyzing results of about materials and techniques used to create art, that he is employed by art museums and art collections and by private collectors to study their works of art and tell them what a scientist can tell them about them. So we did this kind of cross-discipline analysis of the shrine while we were restoring it and cleaning it. And what we determined were some pretty interesting things. We've discovered that if you look at the materials that are used, you see a lot of red, which was red lead paint. And that's not unusual. It was a way to create cinnabar, a very ancient colorant used across Asia and the ancient world. But the blue surprised us because there were a couple potential sources for the blue, but everywhere you see blue on the shrine, the original blue paint, which is under the layer you're looking at here. So we had to take samples that cut into the paint several layers. But when you got to the bottom layer, the blue was lapis lazuli. So a precious stone coming from the Himalayas, Tibet, and particularly Afghanistan and parts of Iran. And so this was a luxury material that was traded for into Gujarat or Western India. And it was incredibly expensive, but the shrine must have been incredibly important to its donor to have spent the money to paint it with lapis when it was created. And then the other interesting thing we learned was that the shrine, through carbon-14 dating of samples, dates to the 1500s to early 1600s. And so that was a shock because it came in with a label that said Sultanate period, ? And that in India, in the state of Gujarat in Western India, the Sultanate period falls right around the 1600s and later. But we thought, well, what are the odds of that being that old and being made out of wood? And it's absolutely correct. And so this came from a Jain house, probably a townhouse in a city, a medieval city in the state of Gujarat. And this was would have been a home shrine for a wealthy, probably a merchant family, and who could use the best materials because for them, that was what was most appropriate for a shrine for their prayer. And this then took us on a second part of this research trip to India, So I went with our conservator, Kate Garland, who you see in the upper right-hand photograph. And she's here meeting with one of our colleagues in India, Anupam Saw, who's head of conservation at the Mumbai Museum, the CSMVS Museum in Mumbai, studying their shrine. And we looked at a series of shrines in private collections and museums in India to see how ours fit in, and to see if you could trace a kind of history of these home shrines by their style, the visual way in which they're created, or by their appearance in terms of materials that are being used. And in several cases, several museums also took samples and gave us samples to have dated. And so we came up with helped come up with a skeleton history of this tradition, which we shared with our colleagues in India. And so to us, this was really important because we could take the study of an object here in Kansas City to help our colleagues understand maybe the history of its larger tradition and how it fit into their traditions in India. So to me, it's one of the projects I'm most proud of in my time here at the Nelson Atkins. And so I want to leave just the last few minutes here to talk about a couple of our current exhibitions. As you all know, many institutions had to close temporarily during the pandemic. In 2020, the Nelson Atkins was one of them, just as your college campuses were. And we were closed until September of 2020. And at that point, the pandemic had caused so much damage in our institution, but also to the larger field of museums and art movement. So our museum was heavily hit. We lost a quarter of our budget, and we experienced layoffs. And in order to survive this, we had to cancel or postpone a lot of our programs and exhibitions, wipe our calendar, as did museums around the country and around the world, because one of the things which still has not recovered from the pandemic is the movement of works of art. When the pandemic hit, you could no longer work as a courier. Couriers like a registrar or myself or a conservator were no longer allowed to travel with works of art, because that puts you and also the courier, the pilots, the drivers at risk. The field has since gone to putting GPS tracking devices, very expensive devices that are tracking works of art as they move, but there are fewer art trucks, there are fewer semi-trucks, there are fewer flights, and there's a backlog of works of art that can't travel, particularly in and out of Europe right now. So it really kind of messed up the ability to take and host traveling exhibitions. And I assume things are improving, as long as you don't have something on a ship in Long Beach right now, harbor. I assume things are better and will get better, but it's hard. And so we opened up our galleries, we cleared our calendars, and we spent the past year trying to decide, well, what stories can we tell from our collection? Because we have some incredible exhibitions that we can develop just from the works of art that we have here in Kansas City. And so I'm going to just reference briefly two that you can come see until March 6th. The first one we see here is Origins, Collecting to Create the Nelson Atkins. And this is a exhibition probably I guess I'd say medium-sized exhibition that covers mostly the stories around the first 10 years of the museum collection, what we collected and why, and who was behind that. And if you think, oh God, I'm not going to pay money to see that, that sounds boring. It's not. It's a pretty entertaining and at times shocking exhibition. And so I just want to show you a little bit about it. First, well, let me go back to the cover image here. So this is a billboard that's on the Kansas side. I think it's on Highway 35 coming into Kansas City. And the figure that you see on the left is Lawrence Sickman. He was our first curator of Asian art at the museum. And we tell the story about how that came to be and how Sickman was hired. But Sickman was a graduate student at Harvard University, and he had studied with a very famous professor named Langdon Warner. Langdon Warner was a specialist in East Asian art, China, Japan, Central Asia. And Warner was also a curator at the Fogg Museum at Harvard, their art museum, and he was an archaeologist. And he is widely considered to be the figure that Indiana Jones is based upon. And so the trustees of the Nelson Atkins Trust in 1930 want to build a collection of world-class art, and they want Asian art. So everyone said, talk to Langdon Warner, hire Langdon Warner. So we did. We hired Warner, and in the winter, early months of 1930, Warner's in China, and he meets up with Sickman, his graduate student who had just finished his studies with him, who is on a multi-year language fellowship in kind of a postgraduate fellowship living in Beijing. And so he asks Sickman to come with him as he goes around shopping for Kansas City. And after the end of a couple months together, Warner comes back to the United States and he writes us and says, listen, you know, we found some great works of art for sale, but I will lose my job at Harvard if I keep working for you. He goes, so here's what I suggest. My student Sickman has a better eye than I have, or just as good. He's right there. Hire him. And anything you're not sure if you should buy that he recommends, send me copies, send me the photos of what he's proposing, and I'll help you decide yes or no. And so that's what we did until 1935. And that's why we have one of the greatest collections of Chinese art outside of China. And so here's a photo of young Sickman shopping in a marketplace in Beijing. The exhibition tells the stories of the people behind the collection with works of art that they collected. This is the floor plan. And I wanted to show you this because, again, those of you who are interested in museum careers, but from different aspects of museum work, you're a designer. Maybe you've thought about being an interior designer or an architect. There's a great field called museum exhibition design. There's only a couple programs in the United States that even offer a specific degree in this, but I think you can get into it from interior design and architecture as well. But this is a terrific field. So this is the floor plan created by our exhibition designer who we worked with on the Origins show. And so we have a scaled floor plan. He proposes walls that we will construct. He or she. We work with scaled down images of the artwork, and we place them, and then along with elevation drawings that show their height, we lay out the exhibition digitally first. And then when you get into the real space, sometimes that isn't enough. And sometimes you have to bring in the work of art or a cardboard cutout or something, and tape things off and to really get a feel about how something is in real space. But we do all of this in concert with our designer. And so you can see the Origins exhibition is designed into kind of 4 main sections. The beginning, which tells the background of the donors and their interest, and Mr. Nelson's early gallery of copies. So the origin of the collections, and it continues into talking about the first works of art in the collection, including works of art that were acquired on an archaeological dig with the Louvre in Paris. That's the first thing we ever did. Pretty bold to start there. And then the next section is on the agents we hired, called Agents of Acquisition. And we focus on 3 of these key figures that helped us acquire works of art through their expert advice. Then we go to enriching the collection, which is the photo you see on the right, part of that section of the exhibition. Working along with our consultants, working with art dealers and other collectors to help build the collection. And then the exhibition ends with a section called Friends in Kansas City, and talks about, explores how people in Kansas City helped us as collectors or donors, helped us to continue to build the collection. And then the second exhibition that I really want to plug with you today is the Asian Textile Show, Weaving Splendor, Treasures of Asian Textiles. 1 ticket gets you into both exhibitions. So, and as well as a lovely exhibition on Victorian ceramic cottages that depict things like famous castles or houses where murders took place. It's kind of very, very Victorian. Think Sherlock Holmes kind of obsession with these kinds of things. So it's a fun exhibition as well. But Weaving Splendor is probably actually the highlight of this group of programs. This is a project that my department worked on along with the East Asian Curatorial Department. And I'll just show you some of the treasures that you'll see when you come to the museum, including our famous 100 Cranes Imperial Robe. This was a robe that came from the tomb of someone whom we know, we can identify. It's the man you see seated in this painted portrait on the right, Prince Gao, who was a Manchu prince from the Qing dynasty in China. He lived from the 1670s into till 1736. And this was part of his, this robe was one of his robes that was in his burial. It's a really incredible work of art with damask woven fabric. It's a dragon robe, so the iconography is imperial. And it has all different kinds of embroidery and both stitches that are couched across the surface to make patterns like waves and scales, and different types of couching and stitches to create textures like the crane's feathers around its face and its eyes. It's really an absolutely stunning work of art. It's probably one of the most important Chinese robes, certainly in the United States. And so it's a very famous object. It's well published, but very rarely seen. Because textiles are light sensitive, we don't keep these on view in the permanent galleries. And so this exhibition is probably your one chance to come see Prince Gao's robe. Here's another robe, but this time we're going to Japan. And this is a robe associated with No theater, so theater performance in Japan. And it's a beautiful silk robe that a performer would wear on stage. And imagine these performances, usually at night, so there'd be candles and lantern light. And they were often decorated in kind of exaggerated patterns. So similar to what people would wear, but more bold, more brilliant. And in order for this to reflect light and the movement of the characters, it was covered with gold foil that was stenciled and pasted onto the surface to create this beautiful pattern. And then over top of it are embroidered butterflies and birds. And so you can come see this robe. And then along with Prince Gao's robe, probably the next most historically important object in the show is this carpet. This is from Iran. It was created around 1600. And this was a robe, or sorry, this was a carpet that would have been commissioned by Shah Abbas I, the ruler of the Safavid dynasty in Iran, the Persian ruler. And he was looking to establish diplomatic relationships and also kind of foreign trade relationships at that time with Europe. So we know that this carpet was given from the court of Shah Abbas to the Pope in Rome. It then entered the Vatican collections, and it was later given to a cardinal named Antonelli in the early 19th century, who took it home to his family's castle. It's really rough living here if you're a cardinal. And he then, the castle was sold, and then the contents again were sold in the early 20th century, which is how the carpet ended up here at the Nelson Atkins. But it's an incredible work of art. It is silk. It is not pile, but that's actually a woven, completely woven design. If any of you do textile work, you'll understand just how challenging this was to make. So it's silk on silk. There are metallic threads, silver, gold, and gilt silver that wrap some of the silk threads throughout. So the whole thing glimmers, but kind of different colors. And it includes New World dyes. So we worked with our scientist again, who worked on the Jane Shrine, John Twilley, and he tested fibers at the Metropolitan Museum of Art Labs in New York. And we identified 3 New World dyes in the carpet. The dark brown spots you see on this antelope who's having a very bad day in the center, that is a New World dye. The black lines that kind of connect as branches throughout. And then that hot pink that the leopard is made out of. You see, if you look at the carpet, there's very little of the hot pink. That's cochineal, and that comes from Mexico and Central America. And so it's quite amazing to us to see this, and this would be some of the earliest documented use of cochineal in the United States, or sorry, in Iran, but coming from North America. And so the exhibition then takes us into the 19th and early 20th century with objects that were made in Asia for international trade. And so you can come see which of these shawls you prefer, a handmade Kashmiri shawl in India or a machine-made French shawl in the 19th century made to compete with it. Both displayed on mannequins, so you can see how they were worn. The exhibition ends with a maker's workshop area. So there's an embroidery station and a large loom where you can do a little hand weaving. So again, if you love textiles and love to make them, come up to the Nelson Atkins. And I think since you're all students, we might even be able to help you with some tickets. So with that, I'll just flag a couple programs that are coming up. In case you're interested, this Saturday, we've got a terrific talk by textile expert John Vollmer on why textiles are masterpieces that are associated with this exhibition. It's a virtual program. We have another virtual program with contemporary textile designers and artists, Asian and Asian American designers and artists who are both innovating and also maintaining traditional textile manufacture and techniques in their work, which should be really interesting. That's in February. And all of the rest of the programs you see here are live in person. So again, if you are hoping to come up to Kansas City anytime between now and March 6th, we hope you might drop in for some of these programs and exhibitions. So that's what I have to share. There are many ways you can use your love of the arts and your other interests, your other skills in a museum career. So I guess I'm happy to take any questions. And I also have my email here in case you have questions or would like more information to follow up later. Thank you. I think I'll go ahead and turn my camera off and wish you all a wonderful lunch and rest of your conference. Thank you.
You know, it's funny she was talking about. Hi. Okay, cool. She was talking about, shipments and stuff being on the harbor. And I was like, ooh, that's me right now. I have a pallet, 3 pallets actually of books in the ocean. Well, they're not in it per se, they're on it, but I'm ready for those to be coming home because that's a lot of books for me. So yeah, I'm kind of sweating bullets. I start school visits. School visits are coming up in January. I kind of held off. And so I'm going to need some books. Anyway, I am Izzy B. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. I graduated from Missouri Southern. Now I graduated from the education department. And, for me, children's books have obviously been a big part of my life. And as a teacher, they were an even bigger part. So the art aspect of that didn't come until later, which I'm going to kind of talk about. So this is just a little bit of my background, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to show you who I was before I became an author. I was on a traveling acting group, and it was really fun. That's me in the back with the wig. I got shot out of a cannon, and not really, actually. So I tell people that, but we actually tricked the kids, and they get really mad at me, like they want to beat me up. I'm not kidding. And then I was on a Kids Saturday Morning TV show before, actually straight out of college. I got a job working on a network TV show as a main character for 2 seasons. The show is called The Lads TV. It's still on the air at 2 a.m. So if you want to watch it, you got to stay up late. Okay. But, but you're college, you're probably up that late anyway. It's pretty funny, I think. I don't know, I'm pretty partial. But being an author has actually always been my dream job. I loved Missouri Southern even before I went to school here, because we used to have this program called Young Authors way back in the day when I was a kid. It was like my Super Bowl. Like, picture this small, chunky kid that all my friends were like super athletic. And for me, writing and illustrating books was like a big deal to me, because it was how I got to express myself. It's how I got to, show my friends that, I have something worth of value, because I wasn't that good at sports. So like every year, starting in first grade, I put everything into this contest, and it was called Young Authors, like I said. So first grade, my book was called My Dog. And even as a first grader, I was kind of silly. Because my book is about my dog named Hoser, and we named him that because he peed on everything. So I was even kind of silly as a first grader. And then second and third grade, I don't know, I had like some dark times in my life. Like, it's called The Boy Who Had No Talent. It was kind of about me, because I was like feeling this, but I wrote about it, so it was me expressing myself, and someone liked it because I won second grade. And then third grade's about one horrible day. So there we go. I was even a little angsty as a third grader. And then fourth grade, I won again. So, and I'm not doing this to brag about my elementary self. Okay. I'm just doing this to show you, as a kid, this was like what I wanted to be. I'm doing it now. And you always hear stories of authors, right? And most of the time it comes with that nasty word, rejection. Any author will tell you this is just a part of the process. And it is. Being rejected is something that you have to know how to deal with. You have to have a thick skin. If you want to one day be an author or an illustrator, it's just part of it. It's something that comes with the territory. And I got rejected a lot. And finally, I got a book deal at HarperCollins. And if you know anything about the publishing world, HarperCollins it's a big deal. It's a top 3, maybe top 4 publishing house. And for me, it was huge, and I was on cloud 9. The funny thing is, and this is just me dropping some wisdom here, is the fact that if I would have actually got that book deal, I wouldn't be who I am right now as an author. So, and I go to school visits, and this is what I tell kids, just because you have something horrible happen doesn't mean that's the end, like, keep going, don't give up. Because for me, I could have easily gave up, because HarperCollins, out of the blue one day, called me up and they dropped the book. I won't go into details why, but it's safe to say I was pretty devastated. I'd worked with an editor for 3 months, and obviously I was at that point thinking, this is my big break. This is me, Izzy B, finally getting, after 10 years of rejection, finally getting something. And it just fell through. Then I finally had an agent who I pitched to them my book, A Tidy Whitey Wind. And he loved it, but he told me another big hurdle. Here was another one. He said, I'm only accepting author illustrators. At this point in my life, I hadn't taken an art class in years. I was at the education. I taught first grade, so art was pretty crafty, pretty hands-on, as far as being a teacher goes. I didn't have very much art experience, but I had, I remember I sat down with my wife and I was like, what, here's another thing in my way. He's telling me I need to become an author illustrator. I could keep going at this like I have been, or I could try and illustrate books. And I didn't give up. I remember I went out that day and I bought a drawing tablet and I started taking online classes. I say self-taught, but honestly, I took so many online courses and so many, I actually took an internship with the illustration department for 3 months. I had a mentor and he kind of showed me the ropes and we worked one-on-one. So saying self-taught's kind of, not true, because I had a lot of people kind of take me under their wing and show me what to do. And I kind of learned by doing. That was one of my big things is I just did it. I just did it. And this was my first book, A Tidy Whitey Win. Now, don't judge me based on this because I didn't have a clue what I was doing when I made this book. It was funny. And that's what it sold to kids. Like I would go to schools and stuff, not having a clue what I was doing even there. And kids absolutely loved it. But the illustrations I felt like didn't do the story justice. So it was hard for me because I was continuously getting better. I would wake up at 5 a.m. and practice drawing until my kids woke up. And then I had to teach. And if you know anything about teaching, it's not a job where you sit down and have time to practice anything. You're literally running until you, faint at the end or from exhaustion because kids are just high energy. And then I was a dad until my kids went to bed, and I would illustrate at night till about midnight. And so that was kind of my life, learning how to do this. I will tell you, and if you're from this area or anything, you probably know about Third Thursday. That was like one of my things, like that was networking for me. I started selling these books at Third Thursday. If you also know about Third Thursday, it got a little, if you love Third Thursday, I apologize, but it got a little strange towards the end of my career selling books at it. It just got a little, like they put me between a couple fire dancers and a dude that was just holding a snake. That's where I was placed between. And, I sold books though. I sold books. But yeah, the fire dancers, I would come home. My wife would be like, why do you smell like lighter fluid? I was like, don't ask. Anyway, I made 3 more books, and Count Spatula. Oh, I love that book. And here's the thing, like I have Imaginary Fiends. It's really fun because I mix photography, mixed medium. I have a friend who's a photographer, and I drew on top of his pictures. Mr. Marvini's Marvelous Magical Clouds. All my books are pretty silly. I love puns. Like Count Spatula makes feet loaf and macaroni and sneeze and snot roast. So I'm pretty big on the food puns. I'm actually making a sequel to that one called Baconstein's Bakery. And it's obviously about Frankenstein, who bakes crypt cakes and dead velvet cake. Anywho, I had a decision to make because kids still love to tidy whitey wit. So my decision was, what do I do with this book? I don't like the illustrations. I hated reading it. So I re-illustrated it. As a matter of fact, I re-illustrated it. It took me about 2 years to fully re-illustrate this book just because I put so much time into it. I wanted it to be good. And I actually worked on this book with the illustration department. He kind of took me under his wing. And this was like our guinea pig book for those 3 months. He kind of helped me and critiqued me and taught me a lot. Taught me so much about not just the art side of illustration, but also telling a story with pictures. Like, I know that illustration can mean a lot of different things, but as far as books go, it's a whole different world because I have to tell picture story with words and with illustration. And now the fun thing is I illustrate books for others. So just a really quick up to where I'm at now. Like, I was a teacher. I've taught for 11 years. Those past 6 years of teaching, I was doing a side hustle of being an author and a teacher at the same time. And this past year, I had to make a decision. I once again, I remember sitting down with my wife because I was actually turning down more work than I was making as a teacher, which is fun. I mean, it's not fun. It stinks, but it was fun for me to be like, hey, this is a risk. Yes. Quitting a full-time job. Of course, that's a risk. Quitting a salary, that's scary stuff. But, it was also a calculated risk because I had, author visits. I could only do 2 a year because I only had 2 personal days a year. Illustration gigs, I could only do so many because I'm full-time teacher. That's a lot to do that and illustrate. So, I quit teaching this past year to do this full-time. And this was actually kind of one of the Devin Siebold. I don't know if you know him, but he's a comedian. And he was kind of the instigator for all this. He quit teaching to be a full-time comedian. And he told me, if you keep that safety net, you'll never fully commit. That's his advice to me. And it was probably the biggest advice I've ever got, is if you keep that safety net underneath you, you'll always fall back on that safety net. He said, but if you take that safety net out, it's do or die, which sounds terrifying. And it is, but, and it was scary, but it was great advice because he's right. I'm either going to make it or I'm not. And now it's all on me. The cool thing is now I'm illustrating for other people, right? And this is actually, I'm actually pitching this tomorrow. So wish me luck. I'm actually making books for companies. And this is one of my big pitches. This is actually a local company. They want me to make them a book and ghostwrite it to make programming cool for kids. And I won't tell you how much they're paying me, but let me just say, I was really excited when I left that meeting, and I'm pitching it tomorrow. So I'm like, ugh. Anyway, it's exciting stuff. So, and the pitch, I already wrote the book. I've already planned the book. I already have it separated and storyboarded, and I already have a few pages. I have character sketches all ready to go. Like, it's probably the biggest pitch I'm going to make, but I've also put a lot of time into it. So I'm really excited to go in there and try, and pretty much I plan on blowing their minds, but you know, who knows? The whole concept, and when they sat me down in the meeting, is they said, we want to make kids think that programming is cool and being a nerd is cool. And I'm all for that. Like, that's me. So I had a real fun time writing this book. Okay, so here's what I want to do. And I don't know, you know, like, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to kind of just be practical. And I just want to tell you what I've learned so far and kind of just throw that out there to you. A lot of information of what I've learned about being an artist and making money as an artist. Cool. Are we cool with that? So here's in a nutshell, some do's and don'ts I've learned. For me personally, like I know Fiverr, you probably have heard of that, but for me, I hate it. Okay. And this is just personal opinion. Okay. Like, take it for what it's worth, but this is a way that you can make money as an artist for digital work and illustration and, you know, all of those things. Fiverr, I know people use it a lot, but for me, it's been horrible. I don't like it. So I'm just throwing that out there. They take a huge percentage of the artist's money. And I think it very often I've found that they undervalue artists. So that's just my personal opinion. My first advice to most artists is to really make a solid portfolio, especially for children's book artists. You need to have a huge variation of work. Okay. You know, and if you can have multiple mediums, that's great. But at the same time, stick to your style. That's probably one of my biggest advices for beginning artists is your portfolio needs to show, especially for children's books. You know, you need to have kids. That's a very important thing. Kids doing certain things. You know, like a kid riding a bike or a kid flying a kite. That's really important. It's important to have full page spreads. A picture book is separated usually into 32 pages, 28 of those illustration, and usually you got about half and half of full page spreads and single page spreads. Like, these are just things I'm just throwing out there, like, that you need in your portfolio. You know, fantasy and science fiction, and just kind of going across the board of everything that you would want to see that goes along with your style. Can you be serious? Can you be whimsical? Show that in your portfolio, right? I just put some places that you can use for portfolios. I use Squarespace. I love it. It's great. It's cheap. And you can make a really solid portfolio using Squarespace. I know there's other website builders out there like Wix and Weebly and stuff like that, but I just think Squarespace is the most solid one for me. Behance is another great place. I think Adobe owns it. So for me, that, like, since I already pay for Adobe, it's great. But I would say that when you use something like Behance as a portfolio, you start to slowly get lost because there's a lot of people on there, and it's easy for you to kind of start getting, you know, in that big pond of fish, so to speak. When Squarespace, you can have your own thing, you can display it how you want and get some flair with it. Like, in my portfolio, I have videos too, because I do more than just illustrate. Honestly, Instagram is awesome. I've heard that they're trying to go more video, which kills me as an illustrator, but Instagram is great. It's just not as professional. Now, here's the thing about Instagram and Twitter too. There are a lot of people looking for work on Instagram and Twitter. Like, it's just something that's out there. Like, people go on these. I've actually talked to agents and art directors who say that when they want a book done, they go on Instagram and they search a certain hashtag and they'll look. If they see the style they're looking for, they'll contact that illustrator. I've heard that hundreds of times. So I hate saying social media is really important, but here I am. Social media is really important. And believe me, I hate saying that out loud. I really do. These are professional sites that are big for artists. Workbook is great for artists because it gives you an online portfolio where like Coca-Cola goes. Coca-Cola goes on here. You know, you got like top brands like Pillsbury. They go on workbook.com to find work. I have found professional level work on Workbook, and it's been a game changer for me because I can put those in my resume. I'm making right now about 6 pages for a magazine, an education magazine. And I got that through Workbook. And the fun thing about that is when you get professional people, they give you professional rates. Okay, so that's a big deal. And also it looks way better on your resume. Children'sillustrators.com is another professional one. The good thing about that is they'll pitch your work for you. They'll put it on their social media. It does cost. So does Workbook. It costs. You have to pay for these things. So these are things to think about. And then Reedsy.com is like for freelance illustration work, Reedsy.com is like the top, I would say, but they're also really picky. You have to have, like for me, I had to meet with someone and I had to tell them about me as an illustrator. I had to have published works, which I did. I had to have experience. I had to have clients and I had to have references. They're very serious, but the good news is since they're so serious, you could charge more. So these are the ones I recommend. Now there's always the option to find an agent. If you're wanting to be an illustrator solely and not draw pictures, you know, I'd say there are agencies out there just for illustrators. Here's the problem with an agent. And I'm going to speak some truth to you because I know that for a lot of people, finding an agent's like their end game, right? You think you find an agent and you've made it in the world. But I'm friends with author illustrators, go figure, that they get an agent and it actually is worse off for them because their agent gets them the same work that they were getting before by themselves. And now they're taking 15, 20%. So this is just me throwing that out there. Don't think that getting an agent means that you're there. Okay. Because for me, I always thought that. But if you want to get an agent, and I will someday probably try and find an agent, but with me, what's going to be great is I'm going to come into it saying, look, I already have all this experience. So you're not going to take as much money from me. Anyway, know the market. Know the agent. Agents hate it when you come to them and they could tell it's just a letter that you copy and paste. They'll know. They know. They've been doing this for a long time. Do your homework and know what your story will do in the market. If you're wanting to write children's books, you need to know how your story will do in the children's book market. There are very common, what's what I'm looking for? There are common things that are going on in the market. And your book needs to go along with those. It's very important. Unless you have like the next Harry Potter or something. That's what we always use as an example. If you got like the next Twilight and you could throw that in there and it stands alone, go for it. But snail mail illustration cards. This is kind of fun because you just print illustration cards. They're about that big and you just send them to all the art directors and stuff like that. Okay. What's the biggest is what makes you different from everybody else? Because when you're hired as an illustrator, your art isn't the only thing they see. That's not the only thing. For me, they see me as a brand. They see me as the whole picture. I'm not just an artist. I'm Izzy B. And I'll talk a little bit about that. About the biggest thing for me is to know your value. And you'll hear this from professional artists all the time. Know your value. Okay, you are professional artists and people should treat you like that and people should pay you like that. And was a big thing for me to learn, because to get my foot in the door, I had to take lower paying jobs at first. It's true. But then I started getting, once people started seeing my work and seeing what I had done, I started getting more professional and bigger clients, and I could raise my rates to what I should be getting paid as an artist. And then I started getting some famous clients, and then I'm like, whew, now I'm raising them even higher. Yeah, I get about 3 people a day that still contact me, and I tell them my rates, and they'll be like, can't afford you, or they'll say horrible things, like you rip off artists or stuff like that. And you just have to be truthful with them. Like, this is not just money to me. This is time. That's my biggest investment here. Is the time that it takes for me to do an illustration has to meet, those standards. If it takes 2 days for me to finish one illustration, then I need to get paid 2 days of work for that one illustration. So it's important to know your value. Find larger clients that can afford you, like using workbook. For me, it's about networking. I'm now actively going through Joplin and going, expanding and meeting people who need illustration work that can't afford me, but I have to be active at it. I can't just sit and expect for them to flock to me. I have to go and find it. These are big nevers for me. I will never do work for experience. Okay. You're going to have people all the time that say, hey, will you make a book for me for the experience? And I will say, if you pay me. Okay. Like, sure, I love the experience too, but money's nice. And the big kicker is when they say, hey, I'll spread your name. You'll be on social media. And so it's fun for me to come back and say, what kind of name do you have? Like, you don't have a following. So how is that investment going to come back on me? And then the other big one is people often are like, can we split the profits? And I get that all the time. People contacting me, hey, let's make a book together and split the profits. And so here's what I usually say to them, and I might sound like a jerk, and I'm sorry, but this happens to me a lot. Okay. I usually say, where are your profits? Like, where's your profits? Do you have profits to prove to me that you've made money as an author? Like, how do I know that my investment will have a turnaround? Because to me, this is a business. I got to support my family, right? So when someone comes to me and say, let's split the profits, it's very easy for me to say, what profits? Because to me, this is, like I said, time with my family. This is time away from things that I might like to do hobby-wise, stuff like that. So, and I'm not going to lie, an illustrator has a lot more invested into a children's book than the author. I could say that because I've done both. And the writing is a lot, and it is important. I'll never say it's not. But an illustrator could take months and months and months to make this work. So there needs to be a really big proof that I'm going to have profits if I'm going to split them. So that's why I say, there are a few exceptions, like maybe your sister or brother wants to do a book with you and you're friends. Okay, I get that. But I very rarely will say, go for that. Okay. I just want to talk about social media because I think I'm pretty decent at social media, but it is a huge part of it. Izzy B Books. For me, social media, I like read books on this. I studied social media because I knew how and let me say this. I hate social media. I hate it. I'm going to tell you that right now. I hate social media. It's a creative killer. It really is. It gets in the way of my creative process. I hate it. It takes time. So I have to be actively involved in balancing that time. Like I say, Tuesday at 9 o'clock, I will do social media for 1 hour and I set a timer. That's important to me. Scheduling posts. That's important to me because I could sit there on social, and you've probably done it before. You're on social media and you look up and you're like, oh man, I've been doing this for a couple hours, but I have to, once again, it goes back to investment. Is my time on social media And it's an investment too. For me, it's all about that investment. Is it worth my time? But also like have fun, because I have so many friends who are illustrators and artists, and they're like, I can't get anywhere on social media. And I look at their stuff and I'm like, yeah, because you're producing the same thing that everybody else is. And so you're going to get lost in the algorithm and whatnot, because your stuff is not fun. It's not you, it's just you doing it to do it. Does that make sense? You're just doing social media and posting on social media just to do it. Like, people can see you that you're not genuine. So that's my advice. Be genuine. For social media, like Instagram is my favorite. It's an ongoing portfolio, but I recommend doing illustration challenges. I actually got a lot of good relationships with other illustrators by doing illustration challenges. And there's so many on there that you can see, and it does help. It does help build you, but it's also fun because it kind of takes a break from the mundane everyday art that I always do, just to kind of take a break and do an illustration challenge. I also joined a lot of specialized Facebook groups, like groups just for illustrators, groups just for artists. And that's been really helpful. Actually, those Facebook groups have been incredible for me because of the relationships that I've learned, and so much through those. Like, the printing process alone is a nightmare. Printing books is a nightmare. Shipping books is a nightmare. And I've been learning from people who've already done it. So that's been great, building relationships. I'm actually socializing on social media. Can you believe that? I'm actually socializing. I know it's hard to believe. Time management is my biggest problem because I have ADD. I do. I think ADD or ADHD. I have one of those A's, one of those D's. I am very easily distracted. Okay. I had this problem in school too. Squirrel like that. That's me. So a big thing for me is to have realistic timeframes. And it's big for me when I come to a client, because this just happened last week. I had a woman who said, I want a book and I want it done by Christmas. Right? I'm like, you're going to pay me a lot of money if you want me to get a book done by Christmas, but I have to come with them with realistic timeframes because of me and my time management. It takes me, 3-4 months to do a book. That's what, I have to be honest with them. And if they run away, that's okay. That's what I have to tell myself. If I lose that client, wasn't meant to be. Being honest, that's part of being honest for me. Be honest with my clients. Like, I can't finish a book by Christmas. It takes 3 months for them to print the thing. You're not going to get a book till next Christmas. That's all there is to it. And I had to tell her that. And she was okay with that once I think she actually respected my honesty and valued it, that I told her the truth. It's going to take you at least 6 months to get a book done. So she respected me more, and she actually ended up signing with me. So that was kind of cool. I have to make a daily to-do list, and I have to have it like blocked out. My wife even helps me with this sometimes. Like, yes, that's how bad I am. I think that's that creative mind. It's everywhere. And eliminate distractions is a huge thing with me. My office is full of toys. And my wife is like, your office is, all those toys that I don't let you have at home. And she's right. And I do find myself sometimes playing with toys. I know I'm a grown man. I'm sorry. Instead of drawing, and I'll be like, oh, and time will fly by. And that's my time management. Eliminate distractions. I have to like put my phone across the room. Okay. And you're over there. I'm over here. Like, I'll put it in timeout. You go to timeout. Okay. Big one for me was to learn to say no. I am a people pleaser. That's how I was as an elementary teacher. My principal said something, I said yes. I did everything. And I soon found out you need to say no. You need to, that goes back to valuing you and valuing your time. Just because your aunt says, can you draw me a picture of my dog? Yeah, that happens a lot. My aunt wants a lot of pictures of her dog. I had to start learning to say no to my aunt. Okay? Learn to say no. I'm kind of running out of time. So networking, this is a big thing for me. And this is the business side, because it is a business. And for me, this was a whole new world for me. I know you might not know this, but I'm kind of an introvert. I'm an extrovert. Like when I'm in front of people, like you could put me in front of 2,000 kids and I will rock it. Like I will get them rolling and we'll have a great time. But when I'm in a setting like this, I'm going to go in a corner and I usually am by myself because I'm kind of an introvert. I'm weird. I'm sorry, but that's just who I am. So networking wasn't a natural part of what I did. I am literally teaching myself how to network. So for me, like joining the Joplin Chamber of Commerce, I didn't think I would have to do that. That was the best thing I've ever done. I've been going to these things and these events and meeting other people who are small business people and learning from them. Because for me, the art side is one thing, but that business side, that business piece is just as equally important. That's how I got this gig to present and pitch this company. I've been talking to Freeman Hospital about recreating Freddie the Fox. Because if you've seen him, and I'm sorry if you made Freddie the Fox, if you're in here, but he's kind of creepy looking, okay? You made Freddie the Fox? Oh, goodness. Well, he's kind of creepy looking. He's like, he has that dead stare, you know? He's just like looking at you. And I said, he's not kid friendly. He's a mascot. He's not kid friendly. And I went to Freeman and told them this. And I sent a picture of Freddie the Fox in my style and they loved it. And so I'm going to start talking to Children's Miracle Network about maybe redoing Freddie the Fox with the Izzy B style. So like for me, that was huge because I would have never thought to have done that, but that was just that networking piece. You know, like last week I spoke at 1 Million Cups and I spoke in front of 30 business owners. And my wife said, you need to be professional. This is a different world. And I was, you want to know how long I was professional? I was professional for about 5 minutes. The Izzy B kid version of me came out and I was a huge goofball, and it ended up being better for me that I was who I was because these people saw me as the illustrator. Matter of fact, we had a pretty good time. I will say we had a lot of fun. This was a big one for me. Genuine relationships with those people and not just meeting with people because you want something from them. Yeah, you're going to meet successful people. I'm meeting people who are millionaires. I am meeting people who are millionaires. And it's hard for me to go, hey, let's share some of that wealth, okay? But I need to actually meet with them because I want to meet them and learn from them and know them and have a genuine conversation with them. So that's been important for me to listen. That's a big part of what I'm learning. Listen to people that know what they're talking about. But here's my big advice. This is me wrapping things up because I could talk forever. I'm sorry. These are my big advice. Only compete with yourself as an artist. I'm saying this and your art teachers, they might say something differently, but this is for me. This is what I've learned. It is super easy for me to go on social media, to go and look at other books and say, holy cow, I am not as good as them. Wow, these people are stellar. They're great. And I'm not as good, and get down on myself and, want to give up or quit. But what's fun is I have all my portfolios saved in my office, and I will take time to go look at those. And I'm competing with myself. I will look at those and go, wow, look how much I've grown. Look how much I've grown in 6 years. I've done so much in 6 years, and I've become so much better as an artist and as an author all around. I'm competing with myself. I'm trying to get better with myself. Does that make sense? Okay. That's big advice for me. Constantly update your portfolio. That's a hard one for me because now I'm getting work. I've been doing this full time since, June. I know that doesn't seem like a long time, but I've been doing it full time since June. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I've already got about 10 book clients, 10. And I've been doing this since June. I've had to start spreading them out throughout the year, but I have to also find time to make pieces I want to update my portfolio. So I'm having to find that time as well. So that's very important to me. My biggest advice is to surround yourself with the right people. Eliminate the negative people. I have had the people that are negative, and I've had to say, this is not worth it. Like there's a difference between critical people and negative people. I have people who are critical because they want to help me be successful. I know people who are negative because they're jealous or they're just a negative person. So eliminate those negative people because you're going to have them, right? Also, those people are on social media too, and you can't take some of those things to heart because it's going to happen. Find critical people who are helpful, supportive people who are realistic. This is my advice to most people. Don't show your mom your work and take that to the bank. I love my mom dearly, but she thinks everything I do is like the best. And so I don't bring my work to her. I'll show her, but I already know her answer and I already know what she's going to say. So it's those critical people that I like having in my life that tell me the truth. My last is stick to your style. There's a lot of things you could do to mimic others, which, you know, sometimes looking at other people's work is okay. And I do it a lot, but I also need to stick to what people know about me because that's what translates and that's what people see across the board. Find time to do art for fun. This is a hard one for me because I can sit there and draw 8 days or for 8 hours. Like yesterday, I drew from 8 in the morning and I didn't stop till about 5 o'clock. And it becomes work. And I want my art to be fun. So I need to find time to do art for fun too. That's a big one for me. Social media is a creative killer. We already talked about that. Never stop learning. Protect your mental health is a big one for me, but I have to like break my day up to make sure I do things that are important for me, but also never stop learning. Like you're going to leave school and still have a lot to learn. So find those sources, find those people, and keep going. So I was going to do question and answer, but I think I talked for a long time. So I'm not sure, but I'm Izzy B. And I hope this was helpful. Like that's what I wanted to do, was be helpful, but practical. So there we go. You want me to do questions or wait?
Okay. All right. So that is going to be the conclusion of this year's Business of Art Symposium. So lunch is over here. I have a couple of quick announcements, though. If you came in a little late, I understand class schedules and things like that. To sign up in the back table, there's a sign-in sheet. That would be fantastic. And if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes and just filling this out real quick before you leave. In about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, there's the design students will be in the art department doing a little Q&A portfolio review. If you have a question for one of our, like Missouri State, University of Arkansas, you got for Izzy B, anything like that, during lunch, just stay in here and then maybe Q&A, whatever, have a little conversation and whatnot. But there's tongs and cups, water, tea, things of that nature. But you're all free to go grab something to eat and just kind of mix, mingle, and some Q&A. But thank you again so much, and have a great rest of your day.